Hey folks, nice to see you. My name is Dustin Cormier. Welcome to another episode of How to Rock Astrology. Today we are going to be unfurling more in our series discussing the not so elusive moon in Sagittarius. I'm a Tropical Vedic astrologer. I abide by Western measurements and I really blend both in a way, but I really root my readings on Vedic Jyotish philosophy. It's really where I come from a lot of in these readings. And today in particular, we're going to be talking about, what is it like when the character of Sagittarius moon also has natal Venus in the sign of Aquarius. This is ultimately pretty good news for Sagittarius moon. I'm going to recommend you check out the other the Sagittarius moon video, because this Venus is not in an angle to the moon, and it's not being starved by the moon. It's in the sign of a friend, and it's in the third house, which is pretty cool. It's it's an okay place, although it does bring certain pushy contentions that we're going to kind of talk about. But ultimately, this is a Venus that's well supported by its friend Saturn. It's not being starved by the moon, and at least by sign, this Venus has the ability to compensate for the lacking Svadhisthana chakra energy that this person is bound to convey, because the moon is so close to Scorpio. The moon is one sign away from Scorpio, and for other reasons, it's a masculine sign, etc. This moon it funnels its water into a fiery sign and also a masculine fiery planet. By being so close to debilitation, this fiery energy ends up making us being very too independent, shall we say. More escaping bonding for the desire to be attached to independence. It's a very Sagittarius moon. I'll say that I myself am Sagittarius moon. This is my own natal energy, although I have Venus in a different place. My Venus is in Virgo, actually. So I have Sagittarius moon, and if you want to hear about my description of Sagittarius moon, all its ups and its downs, check out my video I recently did on the moon in Sagittarius. For our sake today, it's good for me I'm going to give a little gumball spiel of the moon in Sagittarius, and then we're going to talk about what the Venus in Aquarius adds to it. Essentially, in essence, the moon is what sustains us. It is what we are as opposed to what we do. The sun is the king, the moon is the queen that is secretly mending the king's pants, mending the king's cape, doing everything, checking the king's diet, making sure that the king is actually can most sustainably pursue the energy that is given by our sun sign. That's our moon. For women and men, the moon is this queen, and it's an important dimension of our energy. It's what sustains us, again, like I said. It's really what allows us to adapt to whatever circumstances are given. This is a moon that all of these things that we're talking about have difficulty by being in Sagittarius. There's a few reasons why. And essentially what the moon is supposed to do is to make our lives easier, where we're working smarter, not harder, by blending properly with the right people in the energy grid of loved ones around us, so that we get more gain from less effort. This is a moon that is inclined to put in more effort for effort's own sake. And it wants to do it individually because it's so close to Scorpio. What I often say, for any moon that's too close to Scorpio, basically Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, most particularly, what happens is that the person doesn't want to need others in order to remain vital. It wants to remain vital and inspired and juicy according to its own regard, without needing others. It seems like the right thing to do when you're born with Sagittarius moon, and you kind of just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good by myself. I don't need anyone. What you learn as you get into adulthood is that this means that you have to do it all yourself. You have to inspire yourself, and you have to really hope that you've got some kind of ambition worth pursuing that gives you the inspiration that you want. And even when you do have such a career, you have to be careful with Sagittarius moon that you don't put all your eggs in that basket in terms of regenerating yourself. One of the worst things that a Sagittarius can do is, thankfully you've got a good Venus here. I'm going to say this. Your Venus is well placed, so you probably won't fall into this kind of thing. But what a lot of Sag moons do at their worst when they're starving Venus, which your moon thankfully is not, but when people are lacking Venus with this position, what can happen is that the moon and Sagittarius can get depressed when their career and their ambitions and their hobbies, which are your favorite way to recharge mentally, are the only way for you to recharge mentally. Like, I'm a musician. I'm Sagittarius moon. I'm a musician. And I put a lot of time and energy into that thing. If I didn't have a life outside of my ambition, because I put a lot of energy into my career, with all the social media things that I can do. I put a lot of time into writing songs for my band, and it is recharging to me. But it's not the only way that I recharge. I literally, my girlfriend and I work out the conversation of me letting go of some of that energy so I can spend it with her, for her sake, but also for my sake. Because if all I did, I used to get very depressed. There was a period, 2017, when Saturn was going over my moon. Y'all might have remembered it for yourselves. It's called Sati Sati, when Saturn goes over your moon. And I got depressed because all I knew how to regenerate myself was these career things that I had, and I didn't have a lover. I hadn't had a lover for a long time. And now I have a lover, which at some level, if left to my own devices, I would just do this career thing, but it's not a good thing. It's just the funny nature of when you've got the moon placed in a place like this. Because as a musician, if my only thing that I do is music, it has to get stale, especially because we like variety. And that can become very depressing when something that you know is special to you is your only way, it's your only rail that you can hold on to emotionally. Now, you have Venus in Aquarius, and that really lightens up a lot of this stuff. A lot of this capacity to only stick to one variety of things to recharge you emotionally. This is good for yourself, for your career, and it's also good for your partner. So your partner doesn't think you're kind of boring and only having one thing that you ever kind of do or talk about when you're with them, because you hug them and you say, like, I need you, because really Sag moons can really just use their lovers to regenerate so that they can pursue what their sun wants to do with their ambitions. And that's it at its worst. Just because you have Sagittarius moon, by the way, doesn't mean you're going to do this. The moon can be close to full and it gains more strength. It's almost like being exalted. The moon, when it's waxing, it gains more strength. Shadbala you have to consider, and aspects from friends you have to consider. If the moon's got aspects to Mercury and Sun, which are its friends, then it can communicate and consider it important to have an emotional life that is rich and that has variety and that fits your soul, so that you can spin out your Manipura, your fire chakra energy, and it can be doused by the enjoyments that you endure through the Svadhisthana chakra. But ultimately, Sag moon by sign has the moon, which is one half of the Svadhisthana chakra, being funneled into the Manipura chakra, the third chakra, the fire chakra. You regenerate yourself, water, by doing active things, fire. All that really does is burns up the water. It becomes steam, it evaporates, and you're left with a dry experience of life. At least by the Sagittarius moon's devices. Here's the good news for you. As I've been saying in all these videos, in the Vedic idea, the chakras are conveyed in many different ways. It's like a community center that is used by different groups, each chakra. The first chakra in some ways relates to Saturn. In some ways, some people say that it relates to all different things. But the one important Vedic idea, I get this from Ernst Wilhelm. It relates to the Panchatattvas, and it's really my deepest understanding of the chakras. What's conveyed is that Mercury rules the earth first chakra, the management of our important earthly needs and fair share of boundaries. And the Venus and the moon rule the second chakra, the Svadhisthana chakra. They share it together. And when one planet is lacking in water, the other planet, Venus, compensates for that lack of water intrinsic to your personality type. So one of these needs to at least be somewhat okay in order for us to gain water through the Svadhisthana chakra. By sign, the moon being in Sagittarius is kind of missing it, although it's not completely without it. It does know how to have fun and there's a philosophical nature in the moon in Sagittarius that can see objectively above its rather narcissistic idea, at least its instinct. As a narcissistic instinct, but by being in Sagittarius, you can see above your instinct and rein it in. Something that Scorpio moon has a tougher time doing. You're still very much locked into this. This is why I recommend that any Sag moon person get into yoga, start challenging yourself to engage with the compulsions of your mind, because this will help you to ground that compulsion so that you can see these instincts and channel them constructively. Because ultimately you're an ambitious person and you are somebody who wants to live a big ambitious life. Ultimately, Venus in Aquarius this person wants to work hard and then play just as hard and really wring out in lots of varieties and fun ways the Venus in Aquarius, which is the third house from the moon. I'm going to kind of get into that. Ultimately, you are lucky, at least as a Sagittarius moon, because your Venus is going to compensate for what is essentially, at least by sign, a lacking Svadhisthana chakra contribution coming from the moon, because you feel much more comfortable having the freedom to be an individual and to build on your ambitious career than you do in grounding what you are. Remember, the sun is what we do, and the masculine planets like the sun and Jupiter tend to be funneled into what we are doing rather than the vehicle, the people that are sustaining and being what we are. Jupiter is a masculine planet and Sagittarius is a masculine sign. And it's close to Scorpio, again, which is lacking in the moon's true nature by being closer to feminine Taurus. So all of these add up to a very desire-driven, ambitious person who wants to use the energy of the vehicle to go and do great things in the world. And if you find the right lover, you will find someone who digs this, who gets it, and perhaps who isn't too emotionally needy in a certain way. Although ultimately, that is kind of who you need. You'll attract a freedom-loving lover. But especially for women, it's something that, it's not enough to do the ambition thing. You also still need to have not only moments with your lover that you can use your Sag moon to kind of enjoy and be your fun, optimistic personality about, but you also need to let go of those ambitions at some level. Not let go of them, but channel them constructively in balance with the needs of your emotional rest. Right? So the ambitious masculine nature of the moon in Sagittarius is a water sign funneled through the Manipura chakra. It dries up, and that's why Venus needs to step in and have reasons to connect you to those watery things that sustain you, to the water that you get and give by sharing love and compassion and genuine desire for goodness and wealth and health and well-being to another person around you. Not just your lover, but just all your friends, your family, you know? Like, these are all people that are a part of the spider web of your energy grid that sustains you. And if you don't water them, why should they water you? Even if you go and do great things and bring home the bacon and, you know, help your family in philanthropic ways, ultimately they're going to say thank you very much, appreciate the money, we all love you so much for it, and they'll invite you to dinner. And just ultimately, if you lean on what you bring, then you won't develop on what you are. And Sagittarius moon kind of wants to be congratulated at some level for what you are, because Jupiter is a doing planet, right? So always keep in mind that what you are is important. And that's why this Venus in Aquarius has a positive things to add to the moon in Sagittarius nature. The moon in Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius, in some ways it's similar to the Venus being in Capricorn, but there's difference. So let's just talk about this a little bit. Venus is not starved by the moon, and that's good. Venus is in the sign of Aquarius, which is ruled by Venus's friend, Saturn. In Vedic astrology, the relationship of planets is very important. And the relationship of a planet to the ruler of the sign that it's in is basically what defines dignity. It makes sense, you know, it's like Venus is a lover of enjoyment and recreational earthy things. And Saturn is similarly earthy and earthbound in this way. You know, I always say that Venus rules an earth sign and an air sign. Saturn also rules an earth sign and an air sign. Mercury also rules an earth sign and an air sign, and that's why these three planets are considered friends. Partly why these planets are considered friends. So Venus is in a sign which caters to the nature of Venus. And moreover, Venus being delighted by Saturn here is going to give you a lot of luck and a lot of mutual commitment in relationships that you're going to ultimately feel is good. Because Venus is the conveyor of water. And, you know, I often make this sort of funny metaphor of drinking water. When we drink water, we just know that it's good. After you drink water enough times, after being parched, you feel the inherent goodness of doing that. And it's something that you kind of just do by instinct. Now, when Venus is in Aquarius, it's delighted by Saturn. And there is an earthy memory that sticks and carries the memory of good things that happen to Venus. A lot of Sag moons feel the good thing from relationships when someone is nice to us or when someone compliments us. And we say, oh yeah, well, I know. I mean, thank you, but, you know, like, duh. Maybe not that bad, but, you know, I'm just goofing. The Venus in Aquarius is going to have a memory of slights too, but that's ultimately part of a good dimension of what this Venus is gaining by being in the sign of its friend Saturn. It's going to remember the good things that people tell it and the good things that people do for it, and typically it will reciprocate them. It's like a Saturnian need to earthily reflect the reality of what it's given. And it knows it feels the feeling of being watered by somebody. So let's say, you haven't dated for a while and you are going to you hang out with someone at the bar and say, hey, they tell you, would you like to go out and see a movie? You being Sagittarius moon, you probably like movies and stuff like that, but you probably wouldn't even think, like what would I do when talking to a person to make a date happen? It's probably something you might read a book and see that someone said, ask them to go to the movies. And you'll be like, oh, perfect, that's genius. But you might not think of it yourself because you're busy with ambitions. You don't instinctively think about what am I going to do with a partner when I finally get one. So this Venus in Aquarius, your lovers that you do find are going to expand how you enjoy the sentimental reality of what you are. Not just what you do, but this reality of what you are. So the lover says, hey, I'd like to take you out to a movie. And you go, great. Oh my God, what a great idea. And they say, awesome. What would you like to see? And you're like, well, how flattering, I don't know, let's go and see Iron Man or, whatever new movie was kind of coming out at the time. I don't know much movies because I'm busy doing YouTube, Sag Moon, whatever, but they say, you say a movie that you'd like to see, and they say, great, I'd love to take you out for this movie. You go out with them to see the movie, and you enjoy it, and you have fun. You see them, you see them off. Next weekend happens. You're texting them midway through the week, and you say, let's go on another date. And this time, let's see a movie that you want to see. What would you like to go and check out? And the lover says, thank you. And this is you might not, again, Sagittarius wouldn't possibly always instinctively think about having an idea of how to share a sentimental date with someone, but the Venus and Aquarius in you is reflective in this way. You learn by what your other lovers kind of push you to experience, and you're opening to being pushed out of the box through the enjoyment that you gain from your lovers pushing you outside of the box. Pushing you to have kind of especially community-oriented experiences typically, where, this is a Venus that is open through lovers. You open up your friend group. You open up with the type of people that you would typically hang out with, and you learn how to communicate the love that you would want to share with other people. This is the Venus in the third house from the moon. It's not quite the same as having the third house from the rising sign. It doesn't mean that things are physically going to unfold in a third house way. What it just really means is that this is the third house from the moon. Every planet can have something in its third house, and it opens up the varieties of experience that planet is going through in its sign. In this case, Aquarius is the third house from Sagittarius. All things in Sagittarius are going to be opened up when transits happen in Aquarius, etc. And really, it's going to even teach you about how to vocalize an enjoyment and a fortification of your erotic psyche in all the things that you do in your life. You're basically going to take the energy of exploring with your partners, having fun talking about things, shooting the shit, and you're going to channel that good feeling of the finding varieties of novelty and varieties of experience with them. And you are going to be able to reflect that in the ambitions of your career and in your job and your networking on your job. You're going to kind of feel like you're have built on things that make you feel sexy. Like you got somebody at home who the two of you have been enjoying each other's time together. And it makes you feel like, you get this erotic psyche confidence that allows you to more confidently do the ambitious things you want to do. So this is really what this Venus in Aquarius is going to kind of pull out of you. Is they're going to push you to have more varieties of novel experiences and of enjoying yourself, so you can play harder and in more interesting ways that attract more people. So this is two of the feminine planets in two masculine signs. This isn't that bad of a thing. Ultimately, Venus in Aquarius, it's in its friend sign, still ultimately a good thing for this combination. But what it does mean is that by having Sag Moon and Aquarius Venus, there's an energy that you kind of might feel in charge in terms of the erotic things. If this was in the Sun and Mars, it might be more like you're in charge about what the two of you are doing in relationship. But since it's the Moon and Venus, you're kind of in charge of what you are in the relationship. In fact, you might even be a dominating force in romance, kind of pushing to have the ideas of what the two of you ultimately want to do, or at least, communicating how you want to be, how you would, the type of experiences that you like to have that do expand you. And your lover will read this and say, oh, like they can see what you're conveying of how you would like to be expanded and the things that you like to do. And they'll turn to your turnstile. They'll turn to your central hub that you are rotating on. You might be the attractor. You might be the one who's kind of like, you're coming to me. And, you got to be careful not to be, put this in a place where it's going to be demeaning to your partner. For both sexes, but they will demean their partners in different ways. The Sagittarius moon with Aquarius Venus man will probably have like a kinky, toppy sort of like come hither baby that can, if you guys enjoy that energy, the Sag moon tends to enjoy its own energy too much. And what happens is that this can kind of be like, yeah, last time we talked, and most times when we talk, we have this energy where me choosing what we like and what we do is hot. It's like in the bedroom, like come on baby, and you slowly bring down your pants, and it's like such a suggestion of like, okay, this is, I'm going down on you, I guess, and the partner might think that's hot, which is cool. It just, you got to be careful that when you guys like go to a restaurant, you don't just be like, yeah, like I'm gonna have the fish and chips, she's gonna have a sandwich, she always has a sandwich. Your partner's just like, well, actually, I was feeling like having something else, dick. You don't want to carry too much of this energy into your personal lives, so to say. Do it in a way that is in a balance, and it'll work out, and you can even enjoy it. Even a woman can do this. Although, again, you don't want to make your man ultimately feel like they have to be really entertaining or kind of like, have a lot, or, like it can be demeaning when the woman is the main come hither and that it's really laid on. These kind of relationships happen all the time, but it's not as like loud and possibly even vocalized and kind of kinky as with Sag Moon with Aquarius Venus. And it's something that you can enjoy, but ultimately, like this sort of energy is kind of how things will be conveyed. Sometimes, really, this is more like, this can be an illness of the Sagittarius moon when it's at its worst. But ultimately, take precedence in the fact that you have Venus in Aquarius, which means that your lover will probably communicate at some levels when they feel insulted by this. And you'll feel it. You will, and if they communicate it, the Venus in Aquarius will speak to it and philosophize about it, but ultimately will hear it, and you'll understand that when you have things that you need to communicate, or when difficult things happen to you, you communicate them, and if your lover hears it and alters their behavior, the Saturn delight of Venus is going to remember, I asked for something, they were receptive, and now my life is easier. So it's the same thing, is that you learn to reflect because of just the deep feeling that Saturn gets from these reflections. Is when a lover communicates something to you, you want to be able to fairly share in that. You want your lover to reciprocate you, and you know at some level, at a feeling memory level, that they'll listen to you if you listen to them. Think about the fact that Saturn is exalted in Libra. This is part of what I'm conveying here, if you can understand that. It's a fun little Vedic bit of secret knowledge. Now, ultimately, I could go on about it forever, but I think this has been long enough. Now I'd like to talk about Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. This is sort of a lighter conversational style of what the lovemaking nature of Moon in Sagittarius and Venus in Aquarius is like. Moon in Sag, Venus in Aquarius. You're an open-minded, free spirit. You're always on the lookout for new adventures, and you enjoy being with people who expand your range of experience. This is because of Venus in Aquarius at the sign level. It likes to open up into different experiences, but Aquarius is the third sign from Sagittarius. So the third sign aspect is going to also make the Venus feel like it enjoys variety for variety's sake. We're going to hear about how this can sometimes be for an ill thing, although we'll read on. The seeker in you likes to experiment with love, and you generally hold an anything-goes attitude towards romance and sexuality. The Sag moon can be pretty wild and rock and roll about varieties of experience, and Venus in Aquarius can hold an interest in these temporary windows. The Venus in Aquarius holds it and drinks it as deep as it can before the next variety of experience, which is pretty cool, really. At least, like, you know, for somebody who depends on the external conditions and novel experiences for their enjoyment of their lover, which is something that is part of your nature, you are going to do that. But just remember that the soul's deepest joy comes when it is of itself, which is essentially a central, eternal nature. It's the same thing with your partner. The two of you have central, eternal natures, and if you can meditate, calm down the compulsions of the mind, you can see past when the desire for novelty becomes too compulsive. Then you can channel your desire for variety in a way that is always fresh and not changing and doing novel varieties of experience too much to the point where it becomes an expectation. That's kind of what I'm getting at. But ultimately, you have an anything goes vibe when it comes to romance and sexuality. You've had your share of unconventional liaisons, and you wouldn't want it any other way. Although your feelings of love and affection do tend to remain constant, Venus in a fixed sign, you do require a lot of freedom in an intimate relationship, and settling down with one person may not be right for you. It's important to say it in the way they've said it, but I wouldn't even necessarily put it this way. But, you know, how I see it is that anybody can be asexual or polyamorous or monogamous. And ultimately, they're going to live by the energy of this sign combination. And they're going to have to channel their soul energy in the best way they can through the functional relationship that they've learned to live with. It is true that you require freedom in an intimate relationship, but I wouldn't say that you necessarily would think of not being with one person. The Venus in Aquarius allows you to internally devise so many varieties of experience that they freshen and keep different and changing and novel the relationship you have with the one lover that you do seek and want to be with. I would say not wanting to be in a relationship that is bonded to souls in a way that is meaningful, that has more to do with your Svadhisthana chakra in general. It's more with your moon being too close, and maybe it's malefic by being waning or by being closer to new rather than full. Whatever it might be, ultimately remember that these are just astral sheaths that we can all apply meditation to get past, if we can see ourselves objectively and philosophically. So just because you have this combination doesn't mean that you can't settle with one partner. And I would ultimately say that that is the case. Because ultimately, whether you're polyamorous or whatever, you can make a connection with one lover if you want to look into the nature of soul and see more than just the enjoyment of your own mind by finding people who seem to have ephemeral, superficial desires that your brain cooks up, versus committing to a soul partner that has growth potential beyond your compulsive mind. Anyway, I hope I conveyed that well enough. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of how I conveyed it all, if I did it justice. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the other side.